I think everybody watching this show will understand these three words. Life is complicated. The big cities have been taken over by a monstrous ideology.
But there's one thing that the left hasn't counted on, and that is that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So
it's very good to shake yourself up on a whole bunch of levels. And one of the most extreme ones is what we did, which is picking ourselves up from Los Angeles, California, and a life in the Hollywood lifestyle, and moving to Nashville, Tennessee. I mean, it's a very different thing. And the experience works on two levels. One is political, because a lot of people are moving for ideological reasons. And the other thing is emotional. We carry ourselves with us wherever we go. I mean, that's the truth. I mean, you're not going to be a different person when you move to Florida.
I think that if we are to ensure that America remains the world's last best hope for mankind, the only way that's going to be possible is if more and more people come to God.
I know, you're absolutely right. That's the lever. Belief in God is the lever by which this culture will be preserved.
Welcome to the Thought Leader Revolution with Nikki Ballou. Join the revolution. There's never been a better time in history to speak your truth, find your freedom, and make your fortune. Each week, we interview the world's top thought leaders and learn the secrets of how they built a 6 to 7 figure practice. This episode has been brought to you by eCircleacademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. I'm your host, Nikki Ballou. And boy, do we have a very special, exciting guest for you today. Today's guest is a repeat guest. He is an American original. He is a best-selling novelist. He is an Academy Award nominated screenwriter, and he is the founder of what has become one of the leading alternative conservative media conglomerates in America today. I am speaking, of course, of none other than the one, the only, the legendary Roger Simon. Welcome to the show, Roger.
I'm pleased to be here. You forgot to say banned on Twitter. Still banned on Twitter.
There you go.
People at Epoch Times are trying to deal with that, but I told them I really didn't care that much. Anyway, go ahead.
Good to see you. And you're the author of the brand new book, American Refugees, the Untold Story of the Mass Exodus from Blue States to Red States, which I just read. I finished it in 3.5 days. It read a lot like a novel. Couldn't put it down. So why don't you tell us, Roger, a little bit about why you wrote this book?
Well, I as everybody, a lot of people have observed, there's a big migration going on in the U.S. from blue states to red states. I mean, that's been written about and talked about endlessly. What I wanted to do, when you said it reads like a novel, that's my intention. I wanted to give people an idea of what the experience was actually like to someone who did it, which was me and my family. In fact, it's going on 6 years now. It's a positive experience, but not 100% positive experience, because for the simple reason is, I think everybody watching this show will understand these three words. Life is complicated. And whatever you do in life has pluses and minuses. I mean, that's the reality. On the other hand, change is also generally good. It's very good to shake yourself up on a whole bunch of levels, and one of the most extreme ones is what we did, which is picking ourselves up from Los Angeles, California, and a life in the Hollywood lifestyle, and moving to Nashville, Tennessee. I mean, it's a very different thing, and I'm still digesting it, and I think I'll probably be digesting it until I'm dead. I mean, in a way, everything is a surprise. On another level, you can predict a lot of things. So it's I wrote this book so the people who are contemplating this, and I've gotten a lot of feedback on that, say thank you because you're giving us a little bit of a preview of the experience. And the experience works on two levels. One is political, because a lot of people are moving for ideological reasons. And the other thing is emotional, because we carry ourselves with us wherever we go. I mean, that's the truth. I mean, you're not going to be a different person when you move to Florida.
No, you're not. I think, I live in Canada, right? And I live in the city of Toronto, which is being ruled by a very progressive mayor right now and a very progressive city council. They've installed bike lanes. They're now EV charging stations taking over parking spots from cars. The police have become stooges for Hamas. They've arrested a very good friend of mine, David Menzies, twice for attempting to question Hamas protesters on city property and for practicing journalism, essentially. He is a reporter for the Rebel News. I've become friendly with the founder and owner of the Rebel News, Ezra Levant. And the truth of the matter is that even for someone myself, who strictly speaking isn't an American, I'm a Canadian, I'm thinking about moving out of Toronto, moving from Toronto to a more welcoming, conservative little town or suburb of Toronto, where some of these crazy left-wing ideologies have not overtaken city council and are not intruding into our day-to-day lives. So I was interested in reading your account for my own reasons. Now, my children go to private Catholic school. It's become somewhat woke after a bit of a sports/sex scandal a few years ago. But for the most part, it's a lot less woke than a lot of the schools out there. They also have me as a father. I'm pretty conservative and pretty right-wing, and I treat them like young men, not like pussies. So that helps them understand that a lot of this woke nonsense is exactly that. It's nonsense. But nonetheless, they're going to be out of the home in a little while, so I got to figure out what I'm going to do. Where do I want to go? Part of me would love to go to the free state of Florida. I visited Nashville. You and I met there when I was there for a writing event with Steve Pressfield. It's a fun town, too.
Well, Nashville's a fun town, but one of the things I point out is this is not just true of Nashville. It's true all over the red states, is that you find it, with some small exceptions, the cities themselves are blue and are filled with Nashville, the city. I'm in a suburb here, essentially, where it is more purplish. And then if you get a little south of me, it's totally red. But that's a pattern in Texas. It's true in Tennessee. It's true in Florida. It's true all over. The big cities have been taken over by a monstrous ideology. So, I've read, and you'll know more about this than I do, that there are a number of Canadians migrating to Alberta because that it's more welcoming of people with a conservative mindset than the other provinces of Canada. And I think this is what's going on. But, one of the interesting things, and what I write about extensively in my book, is that the assumption was originally that those of us coming from California or New York to Tennessee were going to bring our liberal values with us and screw up the great state of Tennessee. Actually, it was the reverse, because the people who made the effort to move, which is it's a pain in the A. It's a lot of work to move. Moving, especially if you're grown up and you got bookshelves like you've got behind you right there in the show. And not just the books, everything else about your life. Anyway, the people who make that effort aren't just doing it for lower taxes. They're doing it because they were looking for a different lifestyle and different ideology. And when they got to Tennessee and some of these other places, they met up with a kind of old style rhino-ish conservative that none of us knew was really there. And there's been a kind of culture clash, and both sides having to to live with each other. And I think that in some ways the migrants of a very different sort from those coming over the border have improved the situation in the states that they migrated to.
Yeah, I mean, you spoke about how your wife got involved with one of the Republican organizations in Tennessee, right? She became a vice president of one of the key organizations, and she started to become a bit of a political activist. And she'd never done that before, right?
Yeah, and then she got fed up with it after a while. I mean, since I wrote the book. And you know, a lot of people are having difficulties with that. The new organizations are growing up and all, but this is the way of politics in the history of the world. I mean, as I talked to you today, I just discovered, because of something I'm writing for the Epoch Times, I had to add an addition to it, that Black Lives Matter is suing the Tides Foundation for $33 million. That's insane, because the Tides Foundation, of course, is the most left-wing foundation in the world, and now being sued by Black Lives Matter because Black Lives Matter split and they gave millions to another part of Black Lives. I mean, what we're dealing with is a lot of unbelievable insanity.
You can't make this up. You just can't make this stuff up. It's crazy.
You can't possibly.
Yeah, so you spoke about, in one of the chapters in the book, a men's group that you went to some of the meetings of, and you drew a strong distinction between that group and the consciousness-raising flowery men's group of the 60s. Now, I myself run a men's organization here in Ontario that also has members from the United States in it. We call ourselves the Sovereign Man Movement. We're all about uplifting men, manhood, and masculinity, and that kind of soft 60s type of consciousness has no place with us. But I was curious about your organization, because you said you met in a hosh-posh type of a place, and there were a lot of business people there, right? So tell me more about that.
Well, one of the great difficulties, you know, part of the whole thing was it became a cigar club. and you know, I'm okay with cigars. I don't mind a cigar once in a while. But if you get 30 guys in a room smoking cigars, heaven help you. You know, you're going blind in about 20 minutes. It's quite an experience physically. Anyway, but what's interesting about the whole men's thing overall, and I'm sure that you've been discovering it, is that you know, part of the effort of the left is to destroy the masculinity of men, which is kind of insane if you want to have culture continue. The interesting thing about it is they probably don't. And that's what's got to be dealt with. You know, when I think back to the original men's consciousness raising group that I got hornswoggled into back in the 70s, I mean, it was a lot of BS, because, you know, there was a lot of adultery going on within the group.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much. It's like so many left-wing things, it's a lie, a superficial lie, and then everybody's being nasty as hell under the surface. And so, I mean, because first of all, yes, you can destroy men. I mean, the level of testosterone in men has been going down. I mean, so. On the other hand, you can't destroy it totally, and so there's all kinds of hypocrisy going on. But I think what's interesting is groups like you're forming, that are forming in many places, I gather, is that the men who do it are actually more moral than the men back in the old consciousness raising groups, because that was a form of self-hypnosis. I mean, leftism is self-hypnosis, basically. I mean, it's a license to do evil by pretending you're doing good.
Yeah, the left is really good at only a few things. One of them is to quickly seize the moral high ground and then go on offense against their enemies. But there's one thing that the left hasn't counted on, and that is that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the reaction to the left right now is stronger than the action that they took. And what they're trying to do right now in the United States by turning America into a banana republic, by going after the leading opposition candidate for president to the ruling incumbent President Asterix, is something that they think people are just going to, oh, well, we did this, it's over. No, you guys have unleashed the whirlwind. You're screwed. The left is screwed. They think they're going to arrest Donald Trump. That judge, I'm just waiting, going, okay, is he going to be dumb enough to arrest Donald Trump? Is he going to be dumb enough to do that? Because if he wants to absolutely guarantee that not even the Democrats can possibly steal the election, steal enough votes to win this election, go ahead and arrest Donald Trump. Do it right now. Because all this is going to do is take all those people who they find Donald Trump mildly distasteful. You know what I mean? They're not like crazy hating him, but they just go, oh my God, Donald Trump. No, forget this guy. But if he gets arrested, a lot of these people are good, patriotic Americans, and they're going to go, what?
I think you're absolutely right. I think the judge realizes that too now, and he's scared. In fact, what's really fascinating, just released, is Tucker Carlson's interview with Tara Reid in Moscow.
Yes, I saw that.
And I wrote Tucker because a friend of mine. I don't know what will develop out of it, but I wanted to do an interview with Tara for the Epoch Times too. And I think that is one of the greatest cases of hypocrisy I've ever seen. It's so evil. It's destroyed this woman's life. And, it unmasks leftism very strongly. I mean, leftism is truly evil, and it's not connected to reality. It's connected only to power, and Marxism itself is a financial power grab. That's what it's developed.
That's all it is.
That's all it is. It's nothing. Not a
No.
single thing about Marxism is idealistic. It's gone. That's if they're. I mean, what Karl Marx dreamed up in the British Museum Library had nothing to do with the reality.
No. Karl Marx was an idiot on a good day. I had the privilege of being invited. My podcast editor works for. New Tang Dynasty Television. He works for Joe Wang here in Toronto. And he also has a side business where he edits podcasts. So he invited me to Shenyang in April. So on April 2nd, my beloved and I visited Shenyang, and I got to meet Joe in person. I'd interviewed him on my podcast. And they asked a few of us if we'd say some words about our experience. And what I said, and I quoted Ronald Reagan, I said, look, the Chinese Communist Party is a sad, bizarre chapter in human history, and whose last pages are even now being written. And it soon will be on the ash heap of history. And in my opinion, leftism in the West is a sad, bizarre chapter in human history, whose last pages even now are being written. Very much like the Soviet Union in the 80s, when everybody thought they were so powerful and they'd never be defeated. These guys are on the verge of being wiped out. They don't get it. They don't understand it. One of the reasons they want to try to get rid of the Second Amendment is because they're scared of the 140 million Americans that have guns. And no matter how many times President Asterix says, well, we're going to send F-16s against our citizens, you know and I know that ain't going to happen. That ain't going to happen. He can try. He can give the order. People in the Air Force are going to say, screw that. We ain't doing it. And all they got to do is piss off
right. I think you're
these people. And if this cold civil war goes hot, The leftists are done. They're all going to be slaughtered in the first 15 days. There won't be a leftist left alive in America, in my opinion.
I think that's pretty much true. But there'll be a few of us that get slaughtered in the process, unfortunately.
Yeah, they will, and we don't want that. We want no war, no civil war. Thank you. But if they provoke it, I mean, you gotta just wonder how stupid are these people? Everyone's talking about how brilliant Barack Obama is, how brilliant Valerie Jarrett is, how brilliant the people around Joe Biden are. I think these are some of the dumbest people, weakest people in the world. And
I would put a gloss on that. I think they're dumb. Yes, I agree their ideology is ridiculous. However, I think they're driven by power and evil, and it's not really so. I mean, Obama's not completely dumb. He's just evil. I mean, I think it's. I mean. That's parsing words. In a certain way, it comes down to the same thing. But yes, his ideology is dumb, no question. But I think he seized on it because he's to his advantage. After all, he's living on Martha's Vineyard in a $30 million house or whatever he's doing at the moment. It's not. It's nothing if not luxurious. So I mean, that goes a long way with these people. That's what they're really after.
They're grifters. They're graspers.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they are. I mean, it's crazy. So you said that the big cities are blue in most red states. So wasn't the mayor of Miami a Republican like Suarez?
Well, actually, I was recently in Miami, and Miami is slightly different from Miami is exception in that. Yeah. I mean, Miami has got a semi-Republican government. I think part of the reason is that the amount of Cubans is huge, and they've seen it, and they're very anti-communist, right, most of them. So, I love Miami. I could live in Miami in a minute because I speak Spanish and I have a great time. But I mean, when you're in Miami now, you are in a city that is half a Latin American city. I mean, you feel that. The amount you're running into people all the time who do not speak English.
No, that's okay with me. I mean, I come from Iran. I've lived on 4 continents. I've lived in places where I don't speak the language before. Not a big deal if it's a beautiful, vibrant culture and it's not infected with wokeism and leftism. I think I could get excited about that. I could get very excited about that.
I mean, Miami is, there's negatives about Miami. I mean, it's pretty much a lot of drug culture, a lot of that stuff, everything. Miami Vice still lives. But if you go around Coconut Grove, though, and sit down there at the restaurants and have a good meal outside, it's pretty nice, to say the least.
So you talk a bit about getting to know and meet Marsha Blackburn, the senior senator from Tennessee, and you spoke about that relationship. Would you please unpack that a bit for us? Because I'm fascinated by Senator Blackburn. Well,
when you get to know people at the high level of politics pretty well, and I got to know Marsha pretty well. I mean, I've been to her house for dinner. She's been to my house for dinner. You realize what that occupation does to people. It's not good for you. I mean, she votes when she votes in the Congress. 90% of the time or more, she votes the way you might vote or I might vote. That also goes for the other Tennessee Senator, Haggerty. Yeah, who is also very good that way. But what they have to deal with and the amount of money that's going through the system and the way, I mean, they're professional. All Marsha does with her time, most of it, is raise money. I mean, it's absolutely pretty. It's a very crazy system when you see it closed up, and it does something to who you are. Because if you become a professional fundraiser, it does weird things to your head, and I think weird things to your relationships with people. And I mean, as if I've known you off and on for a few years now, but I've never asked you for money, and you've never asked me. I mean, once that starts to happen, something goes slightly different. And with politicians, especially at the senatorial level, the amount of money it takes to run a senatorial campaign now is like absolutely insane. You're into multiple millions. And I've been to a couple of her fundraisers hereabouts. The Nashville area is pretty rich. Franklin, Tennessee, just to the south of us in Williamson County, is arguably the richest red county in the country. For two reasons. One is the country stars a lot of them live there on big estates, and the other is the people who are made a lot of money. The secret about Nashville that people don't know is they all know about the music stuff because that's what it was famous for, and money came in for that for sure, and a lot of tourism too. But the big money is the hospital business, and the private hospital business of the United States and the UK is run out of Nashville. So that's a lot of bucks. So up, and a lot of those people live in Williamson because it's really beautiful down there. It's only 20-minute drive to get to their office in Nashville, or half an hour when it gets really crowded. And so you find the fundraising there going on all the time. Trump's there, who's there, DeSantis was there. They all come there. And, of course, Marsha lives there. So it's... the minute that enters the whole thing, it's a different thing, and I wish there were a way to solve it, because there is. But if you say that the big money should get out of politics, then what you're saying is the government should run it all. And where does that go? So it's a very spooky, it's a strange situation.
No, I don't agree with that at all. Senator Bill Frist, who was a senator from Tennessee back in the day, and he was a doctor as well. I believe his family is part of the family that created Hospital Corporation of America, which is
correct. The richest people in Tennessee, period, and some of the richest in America are that family. The museum here, the art museum is the Frist Museum, and so forth. And their politics was and is, what you could loosely describe as rhino.
Yeah, middle of the road republicanism, basically.
Yeah, they're very middle of the road, and Tennessee has a history of that. And now with the other people coming in, that clash has occurred that I described.
Yeah. So talk a bit about the music culture. I mean, I know you're John Rich must be a friend of yours because he wrote a nice blurb about your book on the back of the book.
Yeah.
And he's I love this. I love that guy. When those frat boys in North Carolina defended the American flag, he said, "Okay, I'm going to come and do a show for you guys for free." And all of a sudden, people gave him $500,000. So that's going to be one hell of a show. I'd like to go attend that myself. What is it like to be around these type of Southern celebrities who tend not to be reflexively liberal?
Well, I guess the one that I know best is John. I mean, and he's done great things. I mean, what you're saying is, and his house is quite is a trip in itself, because a lot of them live out in the out in Williamston, but he lives right in the heart of Nashville, with a house that has an elevator in it the size of a hotel, big hotel elevator, with pictures of him with Johnny Cash and all these people. Right. So it's and a swimming pool built, shaped like a guitar. Oh, and the main living room is like a nightclub with a giant window overlooking the skyline of Nashville, and a bar where they serve his own brand of bourbon, Red Riviera bourbon, and a bandstand. So I've been there for parties, and all of a sudden it's Lee Greenwood playing, or Travis Tritt, or wow, I'm in for a party and it's just the best music I ever heard. I mean, very good music, and so that's a lot of fun, actually. A lot of the country stars hide their politics for the same reasons some Hollywood people do. And then there are quite a number of country stars that have gone left. So it's, and you wonder why they do it, because their fans are not exactly there. So, but, again, that has to do with business, because just as in Hollywood, the owners of the studios are on the left. The music business is a lot of that too. It's at the owner of the record label level, but it's an interesting process to watch. But it's not uniform in any way. But it's certainly better in Nashville than it is in L.A. I mean, there's really no. When you talk about Nashville leftism, it's sort of crazy. Basically, it gets superseded all the time here by Chamber of Commerceism. Greed has taken over.
I look. There's a lot of country music stars that are overtly right wing too. Guys like, you mentioned Lee Greenwood, Jason Aldean, those guys are unapologetically patriotic and pro-American. And there's a lot of them that don't talk about their politics, but they are overtly patriotic. Like, you kind of figure it out. You listen to a couple of their songs and this guy's not going to tell you who he's voting for, but he just told you who he's voting for based on this song that he just put out, right?
Oh, okay. So the most overtly pro-Trump, and I went to one of his concerts here recently, is, of course, Kid Rock. Yeah. Kid Rock, he is a phenomenally interesting person. And so at the Kid Rock concert here in the Nissan Auditorium, a giant auditorium, where the tickets were not cheap. His performer, he's an incredibly great live performer. I mean, he's got energy that you can't believe. He's in his 50s, but he looks like he's 22. And he got, in the midst of it, on a giant jumbo screen, up pops none other than Donald J. Trump in praise of and the whole place goes wild, and he's praising Kid Rock. He loves Kid Rock, right? Vice versa.
That's fantastic.
You wouldn't find that happening in L.A. I don't know if Kid Rock plays L.A. They'll let him in. He probably plays in, Bakersfield or something.
Yeah, I tell you, I think it'd be fun to come visit Nashville with my sons and spend a week or two there. I'd love to do that. And if you're around, love to visit with you, because it's...
Oh, sure. We'll have fun.
It sounds like a fabulous spot.
It's an entertaining place, and because it's a big tourist town, or AKA Nash Vegas, they a lot of good restaurants have popped up. Of course, probably Toronto has good restaurants.
Toronto has great restaurants. Although I'll tell you, since you and I saw each other, I decided to go on a health kick. I hired a guy who puts people on bodybuilding stages. And last year I dropped 58 pounds over a 6-month period. I went from 227 to 169. And then I didn't like the way my body was looking because my upper body was way smaller than my legs. So I said, look, can we reshape me to look symmetrical? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, maybe I should just enter a bodybuilding contest. He said, okay, that's probably a good thing.
Well, you're good, and good for you. Mens sana, corpore sano, whatever it was,
But I'm not allowed to eat at restaurants. I have to make all my food myself, so I know how it was cooked, how it's until after the competition. Right now, anybody who goes, can we go to a restaurant? I'll go, okay, I'll come with you, but I don't eat. Like, I make my own food. I eat beforehand. I bring it with me. You know what I mean? Unless the only restaurants that I can actually eat at are, there's a couple of restaurants where they make meat a certain way, which is basically with nothing on it. And I can have that meat, but I got to bring all my own vegetables and sweet potato, pre-weighed, pre-measured, pre-cut. But I can't wait to be able to go back to restaurants again, because that's one of my great pleasures of life that I like doing, is going to some of the great restaurants in Toronto. But it's fun. It's fun stuff. I'd love to come to Nashville after my competition and check this out, because it sounds like an amazing place. After I read your book, I thought, yeah, I need to go visit this place, spend more time there. You also talk in the book about New Year's Eve Nashville, and I thought that was fascinating. Can you unpack that a bit for us?
Well, as you noticed in the book, there was a tragedy in our lives surrounding that.
Yeah.
Because, we just had a New Year's Eve at home because we're a little old to go downtown Nashville is a very big deal on New Year's Eve. And one of the network, I think it's CBS, goes to downtown Nashville instead of Times Square for their New Year's Eve, because downtown Nashville has all the country stars like Jason Aldean doing something on the stage there, and thousands of people going down Broadway. So it's a spectacle like New York's, not quite as big, but pretty big. And but that's not for people over 20. It's just, it's just a lot of people. If you want to hear the music, you can go down the next day. Anyway, but so 6 of us just did it at home while we watched on TV, and we cooked a really nice dinner, and all the rest of it. But we were all refugees from the bad places.
Yeah. So
it was a lovely dinner. Unfortunately, one of the gentlemen who was a refugee, a black Frenchman of all things, who had come to this country and also, became a famous photographer for photographing rodeos. And it was an amazing person. Died of a heart attack days after our event. And he was the youngest person at the dinner table. He was like in his late 30s.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
So it threw us into a real, we know his wife and everything.
I'm sorry to hear that, man. That's awful. That's awful. God bless him. God bless his family. And you also talked about how coming to Nashville helped you reconnect with religion. Unpack that a bit for us.
Well, that is probably ultimately the most important part of the book to me. I lived most of my life as a kind of semi-interested secular Jew. When I say semi-interested, I mean, I would dip in and out of religion, and I would read about it, but I wasn't exactly devout. In L.A., the religion is the movies.
Yeah.
The religion is what's your deal at Warner Brothers. It's a kind of different. It's a very debilitating environment. when I arrived, am I making sense? Are you all right here? When I arrived, I started to notice there were steeples all over the place, and that people, almost always Christian, but some Jewish people too, were regarding religion as really central to their lives, and they assumed I was too. So by osmosis, it took over in me. And now I'm vastly more religious. Of course, what's going on now in the world makes it all the more so. So I got involved with the Chabad movement of Judaism. And, in a few days I'm going to New York, to Brooklyn, not to New York, to Brooklyn, to spend a weekend at the Chabad headquarters, celebrating Shabbat. It's a strange progression in my life, but a profound one.
Benjamin Franklin was asked after the deliberations to form the government, the type of government that the United States would have. He was asked, what form of government have you men come up with, by a woman in Philadelphia? And he said, a republic, if you can keep it.
Yeah.
And then he went on to say that the American form of government can only survive if the people are a moral people, a religious people. And famously, he was not particularly religious himself, but he understood the importance of morality and of religion in maintaining a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And to me, I'm encouraged to hear a man like yourself, a man who at one point was a man of the left and began his own journey from the left to the right, to embrace religion, to embrace God in a bigger way. Because I think that if we are to ensure that America remains the world's last best hope for mankind, the only way that's going to be possible is if more and more people come to God. And what heartens me so much, because I watch a lot of sports, my kids are into sports, they play sports. I'm seeing so many athletes publicly give glory to God and say that they owe everything to Christ. And these are people in sports leagues that, let's face it, are at best secular and at worst almost satanic, like the NBA and the NFL. And the guys who won all the major NFL awards, they got up and used that platform to say that they're a Christian and that they thank God for what they're doing. And this whole movement of more people toward God, I think, is part of the reaction to leftism.
I don't think just part, I think it's central, as Franklin said. No, I mean, or Alessio said. There's a lot of debates about whether Franklin ever said those things. But, like a lot of things that are quoted or misquoted like that, the fact that it's become so quoted is a indication of how important the idea is. Yeah. And that, I think that it's absolutely true. I mean, it goes back to to the Constitution and the Bill and to the Declaration of Independence. It's all in there, and yes. I think it's absolutely true. I remember, it's interesting because years ago, during my Hollywood days, I was friends with this guy, Joe Roth, who was way above me in the food chain because he ran 20th Century Fox. And he was famous for, as a kid, being involved in a national lawsuit to take, because he didn't say under God in his Pledge of Allegiance. So when he was like 13 or something like that, right? So, and he became like a famous guy for that, because he stood up for the separation of church and state, or whatever he claimed he was doing. And at the time, I sort of admired him for that, I guess. At least made me think he wasn't completely one of those evil studio chiefs, right? He was a moral person. Now I realize he was just another jerk. And not a jerk, that's not fair to say. He was just another gulled man, because it was essentially brainwashed. And no, you're absolutely right that's the lever. Belief in God is the lever by which this culture will be preserved.
Amen. And your book, American Refugees, the untold story of the mass exodus from blue states to red states, it's available on Amazon and all kinds of other places and bookstores. Listener, pick up a copy for yourself, pick up 4 or 5 to give away as gifts to your friends. This thing reads like a novel. It is a fun read. I read over 100 books a year. I read this in 3.5 days. I couldn't put it down. It was such a well-told story. It'll touch your heart. It'll connect you to the very essence of your humanity. And it's a wonderful, wonderful story that'll wake you up to the reality of what's going on in America and, frankly, all over the West, including Canada. And Roger is one of the best writers I've had the privilege to read the works of, and I'm blessed to call you a friend. Thank you so much for coming on the show, brother.
Well, my pleasure, and I'll see you again, maybe here.
I'm looking forward to it. So before you go, you told me there's a couple cool new projects you're working on. Anything you can share?
I don't want to. And that's and part of it is superstition. Maybe I'll be glad to share it when I'm more sure what I'm doing.
Fair enough. Well, I'm glad to see that you're still doing what you do best, which is to write and to think and incisively share. Beautiful. Great. Well, thanks again, Roger. Thanks for coming on the show.
This episode has been brought to you by eCircleAcademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.